In the 15th century, a single sack of nutmeg was worth more than a house. Pepper was so valuable that it was used to pay ransoms, settle debts, and fund entire military campaigns. Cinnamon was considered a gift fit only for gods and kings. These were not exotic flavors or perfume ingredients, they were the most strategically important commodities on Earth. And the desperate, violent, world-reshaping quest to control them did not just change trade, it changed the map, it changed history, it changed everything. To understand why spices drove men to madness and nations to war, you need to understand the medieval world. There was no refrigeration. Meat spoiled within days. Monotonous winter diets of salted, dried, and increasingly rancid food were the reality for most people most of the time. Into this world, spices arrived like miracles. Pepper preserved, cinnamon and cloves inhibited bacterial growth, nutmeg was believed to ward off plague. And beyond preservation, they represented something even more powerful: luxury, status, and the mysterious, unreachable world of the East. A man who could put pepper on his table was a man of consequence. A city that traded in spices was a city that controlled the future. For most of the medieval period, spices reaching Europe had already passed through many hands. They moved from the islands of Southeast Asia through Indian Ocean traders to Arab merchants, across Persia and the Levant, to the ports of the Eastern Mediterranean, and finally to Venice, the gateway to Europe. At each step, the price multiplied. By the time pepper reached a London market, it had been marked up by as much as 1,000%. Arab traders guarded their sources obsessively, spreading deliberate myths about the origins of spices: cinnamon guarded by giant birds, pepper harvested from snake-infested forests, to discourage anyone from trying to find the source directly. Venice grew staggeringly rich on this system, and the rest of Europe, furious and desperate, began looking for another way. In 1488, Bartolomé Diaz rounded the southern tip of Africa. In 1498, Vasco da Gama reached India by sea, bypassing every Arab middleman in the process. In 1492, Columbus sailed west, hoping to reach the Spice Islands of Asia, and instead stumbled onto a continent that nobody in Europe knew existed. Every one of these voyages was funded by the same obsession: spices. Portugal built an entire maritime empire around controlling the sea route to the east. Spain funded its conquest of the Americas, partly on the hope of finding spices there too. The Dutch East India Company, the VOC, became arguably the most powerful corporation in human history, and it existed for one purpose: to control the global spice supply. The map of the modern world was not drawn by kings, it was drawn by pepper, nutmeg, and cloves. The spice trade's legacy is not only maps and merchant empires. The Dutch massacre of the Banda Islands in 1621, carried out to establish a nutmeg monopoly, wiped out nearly the entire indigenous population. The Portuguese used violence to seize and hold spice port after spice port across the Indian Ocean. European powers enslaved millions of people to work plantations of transplanted spice trees in conquered territories. The entire architecture of colonialism, the ships, the trading companies, the military occupation of sovereign lands, was built, in no small part, on the economics of spice. Today, you can buy the rarest spices in the ancient world for the price of a bus ticket. Nutmeg, black pepper, cinnamon, cloves, the substances that launched the age of exploration, funded the first global corporations, and caused the deaths of millions. They sit on your shelf in small glass jars. But open one, hold it to your nose. That smell, Ancient, complex, and electric, traveled 10,000 miles and 500 years to reach you. The routes it traveled are still our shipping lanes. The companies it created are still our template for global commerce. The borders it drew are still our maps. The world we live in was flavored, quite literally, by the contents of that jar.